Let me read the question for the panel. Considering the varying and clashing interpretations of the abstract concept of peace, how can we follow the constitutional imperative to pursue peace, which demands a specificity and consistency in policy? That's the first question.
I think the key conflict there was when peace got to be used again as peace and order. But if you look at the constitutional proceedings, these were precisely discussed and debated. And there in the proceedings, we will find that these should not prejudice precisely all the underlying factors that are found in the broader conception of peace and not just peace and order. And also, we have to recognize that we do need peace and order. We do need state power or police power to address crime. No? But it has to be done in the manner where human rights, the Bill of Rights, and other rights are duly respected. So in the end, if that kind of a baseline, a rights-based appreciation of what might otherwise be conflicting applications of the concept of peace, then you sort of avoid that kind of contradiction.
The second question, may I read the second question? Okay, the second question is, how can we make groups such as the CPP, which disagree with our Constitution, recognize a peace we base on the Constitution of the Republic?
I'll attempt to answer the first question. The second question is, I think, unanswerable. Only the CPP can answer that. Anyway, the first proposition, you cannot constitutionalize peace as you can constitutionalize love. I think I was quoted as having said that. You know, you can put all the nice provisions in the Constitution or in legislation for peace. But if laws will not be enforced and the Constitution is always violated, then I think it's not the catalyst to peace is not laws or bodies of law. It's an acculturation process. If I may make a perhaps politically incorrect statement in this forum, and I think I'm old enough to have that license. The culture of the Philippines has evolved to become largely a culture of violence. And if we say that the Constitution must reflect social and cultural realities of a nation for which it is written, perhaps we should constitutionalize violence. But of course, that would be absurd. In fact, perhaps we should, if we are to reflect realities in our society, we should constitutionalize the right to bear arms. Because in the consciousness of many Filipinos, I haven't done an empirical study, but many Filipinos I know feel that they have the right to bear arms if they can afford it. Now, it's a corny statement to keep saying that, peace begins in the heart and change begins in the heart, or the Constitution should be in our hearts, etc., etc. But really, if we look around us, even within our universities, fraternities killing each other, academics bad-mouthing each other, and almost if they had guns, they would shoot at each other. The talangka mentality and all this, the hostility that still is alive among regions. I was invited to a congressional hearing at the lower house 2 weeks ago, and I was appalled to find out how antagonistic some congressmen are towards the national language, and who still harbor the need to make their local language the national language to replace the present Filipino. So I am, I am disturbed by this. We should not blame the Constitution. In fact, the Constitution is being cited by, as was pointed out in the video, as a barrier to the peace negotiations by the other side, whether the Communist Party or the uh, the other liberation fronts. So, with respect to the first question, I think that we should not focus, although we feel flattered that the much maligned Constitution has been honored by making it a subject of discussion or a subject of your video. But more than the Constitution, I think, is a matter of doing some social management or social engineering to change our prevalent and deeply rooted culture of violence. Now, speaking of culture of violence, many people describe it as a macho tendency. However, if you will look at the record of, again, this is perhaps politically incorrect, if you look at the record of female heads of government, from Margaret Thatcher to Golda Meir to Banda Ranaike to, I made a listing here, I can't recall all of their names, Indira Gandhi, they were war freaks. And there's an explanation to this, by the way. The Institute for, I think it's called the Center for Global Education, did a research on this. And their conclusion was that a woman leader would tend to mimic male leaders to prove that they are not weaklings. So they become more war-oriented and macho in the traditional meaning of the word than their male predecessors to prove na they're no pushovers. Anong palagay niyo sa amin? Pusong mamon? Patayin silang lahat. All-out war, yeah? And we find this example even in the local scene, okay? Now, I'm not saying that saying that women should not be leaders. I'm simply saying that even among our women folk, they should guard against the temptation to be more macho than the machos when they assume positions of power, because that works against peace. I don't know if I would get any reaction to that statement which I made for the first time. Maybe I'd like to hear from Maris Jokno.
There is a question from UP Baguio. Dr. Raimundo Rovillos, please come in.
Prioritized in the context of the Philippines. National security or state security or political stability, or the need to address rights of minority people. In the order of priorities, what should come first? Social justice or state political stability?
Okay, let me read the question for the panelists. In the midst of the contentions or confusion as regards the definition of peace, is there a pressing need to clarify the concept of peace as enshrined in the Constitution? Who should provide, if ever, such definition?
I did mention earlier that after 1987, many groups, peace groups, human rights groups have come up, you know? And action-oriented groups like Ambassador Lee's groups and others, think tanks on peace. And I think they should be the appropriate groups that should put all or the knowledge have gathered together in order that we can have a consensus on the definition. Although I said human rights because, and social justice groups, because I think I always say peace is an outcome of, of, of a response to social justice and human rights. So I think there is enough knowledge here that could could enable us to come up with a consensus on peace. So this is.
Can I just add something, a short, in addition to that, is that it's not only clarity and consistency that is used as a basis for interpreting the intent of the Constitution. I think the interpretations of the drafters is one important component, and that's precisely why I chose to sort of get the constitutional drafters to be the one to explain how they understood the concept, and also from the proceedings to be able to leave how these notions, these concepts, these intentions were actually elaborated during the drafting of the Constitution. So that should be a very, very important source. And if you look at these sources, I think it's quite clear what they had in mind, that they did have a very narrow conception of national security, precisely when we said that they turned around the notion of very state-oriented orientation to a people-oriented orientation of government. That's very clear in terms of the hierarchy that they were able to establish in terms of policies and principles. So, but in the end, we can raise a constitutional challenge to the Supreme Court, and then hopefully the Supreme Court will be able to elaborate in terms of providing more guidance on this. But then, of course, as Dr. Braid said, it's not just the institutions of the state that will define the right or the more meaningful meanings of all these concepts. It's also the people. So that kind of arena is also there, getting the people to understand these concepts in a broad and comprehensive way, and also in terms of defining the action points that will have to be done precisely to achieve this more comprehensive, more justice and rights-based notion of peace.
There are questions sent by UP Cebu via Skype. Let me read the questions for the panel. First, did the President violate the Constitution in declaring an all-out war against the MILF and Abu Sayyaf? And another question is, how can we achieve peace when most of us do not understand or have forgotten its concept?
As to the first question, actually, it should be answered in the context of the previous claim in the video that the use of the word or the phrase peace and order is inconsistent with what we meant by peace in the previous section 2. Actually, there's no inconsistency or in contradiction. If we read section 5, not partially but completely, we'll find out that there's no such contradiction, and I'll do it right now. The maintenance of peace and order, comma, the protection of life, liberty, and property, and promotion of the general welfare are essential for the enjoyment by all the people of the blessings of democracy. So this phrase was a democracy provision, was in the democracy.